In this video, I'd like to show you how to make your own raw umber dark. Now, if you've been following my videos for a while, my teaching, where I teach the classical, or at least the pseudo-classical acrylic glazing technique, you know that I love my raw umber dark. I mean, I don't know what I would do without raw umber dark. It is like the chocolate and peanut butter part of my painting. I mean, I've got to have it. And so I went without raw umber dark for a little while, or pretty close to going without raw umber dark, because I ordered a bunch of paint from Nova Color, and I got my box of paints, and lo and behold, no raw umber dark. Where's my raw umber dark? What did they send me instead? Raw umber, regular raw umber. Well, regular raw umber is just not the same as raw umber dark, okay? So it's a totally different kind of color. And so I didn't know what exactly I was going to do without my raw umber dark. And so I figured, hey, there's a lot of folks that watch my videos, a lot of students overseas, they can't buy raw umber dark. It seems to be only manufactured by Nova Color, and that's where I order all of my paints from. But a lot of folks overseas can't get it because shipping is too expensive. So I thought, let's make a video on how to make your own raw umber dark if you're not able to get that. Okay, so I've got a palette up here, or I should say a canvas up here with some paints on it like a palette, and I'm going to demonstrate how to make your own raw umber dark. Now, full disclosure, I've never done this before, so I'm just going to experiment and we'll see if we can get this figured out. But right now, what I've got here on my palette, so to speak, is raw sienna, just to give you an idea of what that compares to with raw umber. Now, this right here is raw umber, and I actually have never used that before. I always have gotten raw umber dark. Now, this here is raw umber dark, and I had just a little bit of the dregs left in my tube here, so I squirted that out. This is raw umber dark, and you can see how much darker that is than regular raw umber. I have ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, Indian yellow, just in case I need it, and ivory black. And I'm going to be using these colors here to be able to mix some sort of a raw umber dark clone. At least that'll be my attempt. So let's take a brush that's just big enough that it doesn't get too cumbersome with this small size of a canvas board. And then let's first do this. Let's take some raw umber dark and we'll mix it with a little bit of matte medium that I've applied here, just so you can kind of see how that looks when it's in a semi-transparent or semi-translucent glaze. All right, so this is raw umber dark. And I would say that's maybe a glaze that's about 70% matte medium, 30% paint, something like that. I don't know the exact ratio, but it's pretty translucent, but it gives you an idea of what that looks like. And in fact, we could apply it just a little bit thicker on the top, just so you can get a really good idea of how that looks when it's brushed out. So here it's probably about 90% opaque right there, because I had just a little bit of matte medium left in my brush. All right, so you can see how dark that is. Now, let's go ahead, take some raw sienna, and I'm going to do the same kind of thing. I'm going to mix it with some matte medium over here. All right, so you can see the color profile is a little bit different. It is a little more orangey, and I think probably it needs to be thinned out a little bit to really represent an accurate depiction of what we've got. Okay, so this is a little bit more yellowish. And again, I'm going to mix it with a little more matte medium to really get it to the right translucency. I'm just going to wipe that away. Wipe my finger on the towel, which is off camera. Alright, so you can get an idea. I've got a little too much on my brush. I just want to smooth that out. that gives you an idea of what that looks like. It's just a whole different color, way more yellowish. This is going to be the more opaque version of it right here. I think I ended up grabbing raw sienna. Here we go. Let's grab raw umber. Okay, that was raw sienna. Above this is the raw umber right here. Again, though, you can see how close that is to raw sienna. So raw umber on the right, raw sienna on the left, and you can see how close that actually is. Let's just get that a little more opaque so it's similar to that raw umber dark in application. And then let's go ahead and apply it right above that raw umber dark so we can really see what they look like side by side. And again, this is, yeah, it's pretty much the same level of opacity, but you can see how much lighter that is. And now that I have some of these little comparisons established, let's go ahead and see if we can mix something into this raw umber and make it more like the raw umber dark that we have down here. And just in case you're wondering, we can just put in a little bit of a marker indicating raw umber and then raw umber dark. Okay, so now you can just kind of see those differences. Now let's go ahead and we will see what we can do to change raw umber into raw umber dark. So take a little bit of this and we'll apply it, be right about there, and then I'm going to just wipe my brush on the rag that I have off camera. I'm going to pull some ultramarine blue into this. Okay, so I know it needs to get darker, and that will help it get darker. It'll probably be a little too green with that, so let's just grab a little bit of alizarin crimson. Yep, a little bit more. Now, eventually we should be able to get something that's very similar. And I can bring this back up over here actually and compare it. Pretty close. Probably could get just a little bit darker though. So let's go ahead and grab a little more ultramarine blue, a little bit more alizarin crimson. Just kind of mix that together. And again, we're just going to bring this over next to our application here that we have of the umber dark there. Yeah, I think that's pretty close. I think that's pretty close. Now the question is, if I take a nice big lump of this and just get it really nice and thick, can I make it look like that up there in terms of, actual darkness of the value? Because raw umber dark is a very, very dark pigment, and that's why it's fantastic for the glazing technique for developing your shadows. We want to make sure we can get this to look like what we have up there. So I'm adding a little alizarin crimson, more ultramarine blue. We want to get this as dark as we can. Now, could you use ivory black? Probably could. I think I might try that and see what happens, because I have some on the palette below, right down here. Just a little bit of the ivory black. So we might give that a shot as well. But let's see what we've got. This is pretty close. It does need a little more alizarin crimson. It's a little harder to see the color though when it's so thick. Let's see if we really have it. That's why I kind of spread it out there. Now, it's pretty close. But the true test is when you mix it with matte medium, what does it do? Because that's going to really give you the real gauge of the tonality of the color. Well, we can see we had the value right, but it's not the right temperature. It's a little too cool. All right, so we would have to add a little bit more alizarin crimson, maybe even a bit of Indian yellow, just a little bit of Indian yellow to warm that up. All right, again, to get this to look similar to what we have up there. Now we go ahead and we apply this up here. It's closer, and in fact, if I kind of spread that out, I'm just going to apply that right here so I can get a gauge. All right, so remember, this here is the actual raw umber dark. This one right here, mixed with a little bit of matte medium to show the color, show the tint. That's pretty close, but it actually, you know, still could use a little more Indian yellow. We kind of mix that in, and then just a bit of alizarin crimson. All right, just to warm it up. Now we'll apply it up above. All right, now I would say that this is really close. This color here, very, very close to that from my naked eye, just observing it. I could put a little swatch right here. All right, so you can see this up against next to that. Fortunately, I should have put that. I should have applied this color more in the middle, so I had more room to demonstrate. I can apply a little bit to this side here. Just go over some of my text. All right, just to show you again what we've got going on. And you can kind of see the whole view of it, but I'm going to actually do a zoom in shot and then really show you what this looks like. So you can see this is my manufactured raw umber dark right here. On the right, this is the original raw umber dark from Nova Color, and you can see they're very, very close. Okay, so what colors did it take to achieve that? It took ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, Indian yellow, plus regular raw umber. Okay, so it took those three colors. Now I specifically chose these colors because they're very dark in value. Indian yellow shifts the color without lightening it up. If you used, for example, a yellow ochre is more opaque and it would lighten it up too much. That's why I chose Indian yellow, because it's a very transparent pigment and it shifts the color without lightening up the value. And we want the raw umber dark to be very dark. So those are the colors you're going to want to use to manufacture your own raw umber dark. So you're going to want raw umber. You're going to want ultramarine blue. You're going to want alizarin crimson. And Indian yellow. Okay, so those would be the colors you want, raw umber plus those additional colors, and that is going to get you something very, very similar to raw umber dark. We did try using ivory black. Let's just try that really quick and see if we can do it with that. So let's take some raw umber again right here, and I have a little bit of room, I think, on the bottom, so we'll go ahead and apply it right here. We got raw umber. Wipe off my brush, add some ivory black, and just add a little matte medium just so I can see the color. And I would say that's pretty close. It's not quite warm enough, it's a little green. So we could add just a touch of Indian yellow and then a little bit of alizarin crimson. Maybe a little more alizarin crimson because it just looks a little too greenish. That's pretty close from what I can observe. And now we're just going to go ahead to the top and see what that looks like if I can get that a little bit closer. In fact, let's do this. Let's just go ahead and grab some original raw Umber Dark and we'll go ahead and apply it next to this other one. Let's do that. We'll take some raw Umber Dark, a little bit of matte medium. Okay, just grab a little matte medium here and we'll go ahead and see how that looks next to this. Let's make them about the same value. So are we there? You be the judge. I would say the raw Umber Dark that I made on the right is a little bit too reddish. I probably added too much alizarin crimson, so just add a little more Indian yellow. Now, what do you think of that? Pretty close? Pretty close. Pretty close. Maybe just a touch more ivory black. See how much longer I can mix this before it starts getting blotchy. Just a little more alizarin crimson. I added a little too much Indian yellow, so I have to balance that out. Yep, just a little more alizarin crimson. Pretty close. Pretty close. Alright, so you can mix this kind of raw Umber Dark mix a couple of different ways. This is not a perfect match, but I would say it's close enough. If I want to add maybe just a little more ivory black, I could probably get it just right. But that'll have to do. That'll have to be close enough. So pretty close match, and you can see how we can achieve it. So you could also do another recipe of raw umber plus ivory black, Indian yellow, and alizarin crimson. So basically, you're still going to need 3 colors from what I can gather to really make it correctly. You might be able to get away with not using Indian yellow, but I think you still need it to adjust the other colors. So either way you go, raw umber plus 3 colors is going to get you that raw Umber Dark. So we have raw Umber Dark, I'll just say RUD, and then this is my homemade raw Umber Dark. Homemade right here. Alright, and then up there I had the same thing going on, but there I was using raw Umber Dark, ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, etc. Or raw umber plus those 3 colors. I think you get the idea. I have to say I'm not the most organized person in the world, but I hope that this illustration here showed you what you can do to create your own homemade raw Umber Dark. If by some reason you want to use raw Umber Dark, which I really recommend it, it's great for the glazing technique in portraits, but difficult to purchase when you're overseas for whatever reason. Even if you live in the US and you just don't care to buy your paint from Nova Color, this is a way that you can make your own raw Umber Dark. All that being said, I prefer to just buy it from Nova Color so I don't have to mix it up and I think having the authentic pigment is still just a little bit better. But this is what you could do to make your own homemade raw umber dark. So this video has been a long time coming. I hope it's been helpful for you. So if it is, let me know. What did you think of the video? Is this recipe something you could use to make raw umber dark? Do you have some other ideas how you can make raw umber dark or mix any other colors that you can't purchase at your local paint store or online? Let me know. And check out my tutorials at realisticacrylic.com. Also get my free guide on how to correct skin tones, because we use raw umber dark all the time in our skin tones and the dark values. Get my free guide, Fix Muddy Skin Tones in Your Acrylic Portrait. I also have another guide, 12 Steps to Painting Realistic Acrylic Portrait Skin Tones. 12 Steps to Painting Realistic Skin Tones in Your Acrylic Portrait. That's what it's called. You can get those guides just by looking at the description in the video and hitting that top comment as well. Thank you so much for watching. Hope this has been helpful for you. God bless, and we'll see you in the next video.